Okay. Okay. Hello and welcome. I believe we're live. Okay, I feel good about today because today's a good day to feel good about. Welcome. Here we go. Is this working? First and foremost, this is the Art of Rock. Every Saturday we're here. Thank you for being here. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge the Tongva people as being the traditional landowners of Los Angeles. Secondly, every Saturday here, I believe it is actually every Saturday, 9 a.m. in LA, 12-ish in New York, and 6-ish in Berlin. Join us on the Twitch. Join us wherever is convenient for you to join us. This was made, we're going to talk about music and getting through the ruts and keeping going and all that jazz. This is brought to you by Angel Spit's Patreon. $3 a month, and you're doing me a favor, and I can keep this madness going. You also get like a free copy of everything. Like every time I do an album, it's like, hey, here's the digital, go get it. Angel Spit's new album is on Bandcamp, which Patreon members got a free copy of. Go grab it. It's awesome. It's cranking, and it's full of fantastic evil, and I do love some fantastic evil. If you want some more fantastic evil, there's a playlist on Spotify called the Industrial Incisions Playlist, and it's bloody awesome, and you should jump on that. It's there, and it's a whole bunch of old bands that you know about and a whole bunch of new bands that you need to know about. So if you see a band there that you like, grab it, take it, and love it. If you want more stuff to love, MTV TV, who are coming up to their 3rd anniversary. After this, we're going to raid to MTV TV. But if you go there, you will find your new favorite band, I promise. And if you've got a video, email them to them there, and they will play it, and people will get to know about your existence and stuff. This is the Art of Rock. Welcome, Diana. I won't put you on the spot, but you had a fantastic question, which is about balancing maintenance and balancing admin and balancing creativity. I could start on that fantastic thing if you want. And Rezi, I don't see you. Where have you gone? Anyway, so I find that I have to timetable stuff, and if I get inspired, because you know how you get inspired. Actually, at this very moment, I am inspired and I want to write something down, but I can't. Try and write stuff down. And at another time, you put it all together. My time for putting stuff together is in the morning, early in the morning, like 5 a.m. And I will go to 9 or 12 or something like that, depending on work and everything else. I find that for me to do admin, I have to go on a huge walk and reset my brain and then come back and do it. And I'm finding increasingly doing stuff like having mindless drivel, besides music, but some like long running sci-fi in the background, like Star Trek or Doctor Who or something that's just on, that's helping me get through it, because I don't know, admin gets so freaking boring sometimes. Yeah, the thing about admin is you got to do it. If you need to take your if you're serious about your art, you've got to do it, and that includes advertising and all that stuff. But you just got to find a time to be creative, and you've got to put that aside. And that might mean getting up out of bed earlier or going to sleep later, depending on your sleep cycles and the way your brain works. And always remember that the thing about creativity is that the 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration is very, very, very true. And sometimes you have to focus creative energy into fixing, completing, and producing material that is already existing and getting it up to speed. That's my thoughts on that. Brett, do you want to say anything crazy about that?
Oh no, I agree 100%. So that's even like in going through and trying to obviously I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm on the serious side of things, of most things. But where it comes to the admin side, I mean, I'm going through my own stuff now, and I mean, not only do I have like in a previous discussion, a video on the back burner there for Diana, but I've got several tracks that I know I need to go through and individually cut out uh, recordings of each layer of the synth tracks that are powering them. Right now, I've got like a left-right mix only, and that's not going to be very good for overall mixing. Not to mention, it makes it really difficult to get rid of noise and all those other admin things you have to do that aren't just fun, creative stuff. And then on top of that, you got the actual physical issues. That's where I've got a data issue today. If I want to make sure I don't lose data, I get to repair the things that store it. So, I mean, that's just how it affects me, just at my level of things. At any level of complexity, and of course, it's going to compatible.
Fantastic. Diana, do you want to throw in on that?
Well, like I was even talking about, like, you know.
Dang it. Hey, I accidentally muted you.
Accidentally.
Okay. Well, like taking care of all the physical issues that come up, and like you said, like, I don't know, do you get a backup for the backup, and like replacing cables and cleaning and making sure there's no dust in the equipment, and all of those little physical issues that come up that you want to be creating, but those things have to come first in order to be able to create. And how do you, like, yeah, I'm still working on balancing, like setting up a workspace that makes sense for me, and in the meantime, I have to write, like you said, Carl, write down. So, finding that balance is still a little bit of an issue for me.
Yeah, I totally get it. And the thing about it is that you're feeling creative, and then you're realizing something isn't working, and the next thing you know, you're on your knees under your desk trying to figure out why the thing's not working, and suddenly you don't feel creative anymore. Because anger is a great way of getting rid of creativity, I find. I think it's like I try and treat the okay, for example, on the modular, I have, and everywhere, I have this blue tape. It's blue, like, paint masking tape. When you're painting, it's blue tape. Comes off easy, doesn't leave a mark. And my thing is that whenever I've got a scratchy knob or a jack that doesn't work or something, I put a piece of blue tape over it. Currently, I have about 5 or 6 pieces of blue tape on the modular, so it's time to do some maintenance. And I really want to, this weekend, do a whole bunch of streaming and a whole bunch of everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a whole bunch of maintenance while listening to records, getting into the mood of, okay, we're going to make music. Like, this is all a part of the religious process to move towards making music. And I'm going to try and stream a few times this weekend, do like big long streams. And we'll see how that goes. I just need to I'm not doing anything this weekend. It's New Year's if you're watching this in the future, and everyone has either the flu or COVID. So I'm going to stay inside because I really don't want to get sick. Like, half the people in my apartment block have it. So I don't want to get sick because I get very sick. So instead, if you're spending the weekend alone, let's spend it alone together and watch MTV TV. And Diana, if you see me jump up, oh no, you're not going to be on it, I will try and stream myself. It's hard to raid when you're doing when you're doing a live stream, it's difficult. But anyway, yeah, so it's the thing about LA is that there's a lot of dust, and a lot of dust gets in your gear. So all my gear is covered always. Steve from Australia taught me that. And always covered, because that dust gets into joints, and those joints become scratchy. And sure, they're easy to fix, but you got to fix them. You have to pull them out and fuck around, and it's just not rock and roll. But you've got to here's Adam. You've got to be able to do that. And Rezi, where the hell are you? So that's how that works. try and use it as a ways to get excited about what you're doing. Welcome, Adam.
Hello.
So you know what we're talking about, right?
Well, that's why I jumped in here looking like the mess that I look like right now, because Diana said something about the economy of remixes.
Yeah, that's coming in a bit.
Okay.
Right now we're talking about work area and stuff like that.
Okay, well, I'm coming in cold on that because I was making a cup of tea before I jumped on so
Okay,
that I
cool.
be somewhat useful. Demon hate. What's up, buddy?
Awesome. Yeah, so that's my thoughts about it is that it's maintenance and shit like that. Brent, do you want to jump in on this? Yeah.
Yeah, so another thing that I was thinking about, obviously maintenance and all these things are going to be things you're going to have to just do, right? Everyone, every single one of us hates it because it stops that creative flow. So, yeah, to Carl's point, having something else to do to discuss, whatever while you're doing those things, that's a tactic I use every single. I work from home, network engineer by trade, and one of the ways I do that is I kick on EMTV and kick on YouTube, and I make coworkers out of videos and information that I can. Okay, need to pause you for a minute while I go do this. Today's no exception. It's like, well, um, I want to sit there and play with those sons. I want to sit there and go through and work on everything, but and this touches on the backup of a backup of a backup. Um, I have that in spades. I've lost everything in hard drive crashes, and it sucks. And I'm never going to do that again. So a lot of the things that I do are automatic. A very simple one that I employ is SOS online backup. I throw it on my machine so that way it runs on a schedule. Everything I do has a primary up to the cloud. Internet can go out. I might not have access to that. Well, that's where my NAS comes into play. Everything I send to the cloud, I use a secondary program to clone this entire computer over to an external machine that just sits there, and its only purpose and job in life is to hold data for me if and when. That's not the end of it. I have another set of USB drives, which I mentioned last week. I have these just endless hard drives that I use as targets. Well, the studio computer itself has a sister hard drive on that USB drive. So if I go down, I will actually turn to it first. It is literally taking a copy every few seconds of everything I've got. And then on top of that, I still have the old studio with 99% of everything I still do. So, endless. And the way you maintain that is just simplicity. Just you don't worry about it all the time. Get as many of these things happening in the automatic as you absolutely can, so that way you don't have to. That's where your backups come in. Keep your old stuff, keep it in working condition. Put it on a shelf. It will, if you have a house fire and you have to run out with something, maybe that's the thing you grab. And then off site. Get it off, get it outside your house. You got to go back to it. Something. My thoughts.
Thank you so much. I really that was great. Adam, talk to me.
Okay, unmuting. There we go. Okay, so on the hard drive thing, like Brett, I totally agree with you. You can't back up enough. You really can't back up enough. I'm a huge fan of these things. They're solid state drives. This one happens to be a 4 TB, but most of the ones that I use are 1 or 2. But for MTV TV, I use the 2 gig version. And so this is the third backup of MTV TV right here. So that's what I was thinking about when we were talking about, workstations and workflow, right? Is that where we're at? Right, workstations and workflow, workstations, workflow. Okay. So one of the things that I think is really important with when you have specific and very different projects is to put them in different places and label it well. And as many backups as possible. So like nothing to do with my DJing ever goes on the MTV TV drives. Nothing that I need on MTV TV goes on the DJ drive. So the DJ drive is completely separate. The MTV TV drives are completely separate. And then I have working drives that are just for like my own shit, is my own bullshit. And I have a few backups of those. And some of, at this point, I'm backing up stuff from my previous backups so that I have it all on solid state instead of old school spinning disk machines. But that's another thing that I think is important when you're talking about the digital age that we're in, and as files get bigger and bigger, like our capabilities get bigger and bigger. But 4K video is not the end of what video is going to do. They're just going to get bigger. And so I do think that you need to stay up to date to some degree technologically, but when it comes to storage, I think it's super important. We all probably are old enough to remember when they told us that CDs were going to last forever, and then we found out like 10 years later that they degrade faster than tape. As far as workspaces themselves, I'm one of those cats that I have a lot of projects going on at once. And so I like to have sort of a dedicated area for each thing so that I don't have to keep cleaning up after myself. Because the hardest thing, and I think this goes for a lot of musicians, especially like I'm fortunate now because I'm not like living in one tiny room. But when I was writing my album, I was living in one tiny room, and everything in my life was all in this one room. And so the biggest pain in the ass thing is like having to like set up the microphone again, set up the controller again, blah 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 blah. Every single time you want to use it, you got to set it up again. So like, if when we are in perhaps a more conducive situation, the more I think that you can have your spaces dedicated for each specific purpose, the less frustration that you will experience, and the less procrastination you will experience. Because, well, as you know, Carl, if you can just go on and flick a bunch of stuff on, like power on one switch, boom, everything's working, like straight from brain to creativity. You don't have to like stop and think, oh, I have this great idea, but before I do that, I need to do a half an hour of other bullshit. So maybe I'll do it later. And by that time, you've forgotten the idea, or even half an hour into plug in wires and you've lost the idea, because it became a workstation thing instead of a creative thing. And I think, so the idea there being that to have your workstation as dedicated as possible to the thing you're doing, whatever that thing is. It spares you that gap between idea and action.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Yeah, backing up and stuff is really important. Hey, can I change the subject? So I don't know about you, but 2023 for me was a great big pile of dog shit. Like I've had some dog shit years in my time, but this one took the cake for me. It was like soul destroyingly fucked. And I remember one of the Queen's speeches, she described the year as anus horribilis, which is funny because we all said, oh, she said anus, but annual. Um, and this has been a really fucking fucked year for me. Like it's been a big bag of fuck, not in a good way. And it's really interesting that at the end of the year, everybody goes, "Oh, yay! I hope your 2024 is going to be awesome." But I have a sneaking suspicion it's going to be a pile of shit. So my wish to everybody is that may the universe or whatever the fuck it is you believe in help you build the strength mechanisms for you to cope with the next wave of epic tidal wave of shit that's going to hit you and probably destroy you, your life, and everybody who you give a fuck about. Don't mean to be negative or anything. I'm just trying to be realistic. And then the next question is, how do you turn that into music? And then how do you turn it into music, holding on to the strength and the idea that you are trying to be true to yourself and not editing yourself based on an audience that doesn't give a fuck. Yeah, Brett, go.
Like, first of all, you just have to be yourself. Start with it. And you have to start with it. You know, music's going to be a function of that. Being true to yourself. Be true to yourself in your music as well. The problem, I think, ends up being, you know, how do you navigate it? How do you know thyself in that scenario? Because every single one of us tell ourselves stories about what's going on. And we kind of suck at storytelling, at least to ourselves, or at least we suck as listeners, I think. Nonetheless, if you're sitting there saying, hey, look, you know, I feel like if I'm doing this, I'm being true to myself. Know that it can change later. You know, don't have to be this thing you've already been stone. If you are being true to yourself, it means you are reactive somewhat. Part of that's going to be the information you have available to you. It's going to be what you do to seek out information from your environment. It's not going to be a pleasant picture sometimes, many times. It gets more complicated after that because what do you do about it? But if you start with just being true to yourself from the very beginning, the next question is already answered in terms of what you're going to do with music. True to yourself in your music. Put the next foot forward when you know what that foot is.
Adam, go. Thank you very much. Oh, Brent, no, wait. Sorry, Brent, were you still? All right, cool. Thank you so much. And Brent, also, Brent, can you bring your microphone up? An itsy bitsy, which would be great. I'm going to throw this to Mr. Adam now.
Unmuting. Okay, there we go. Okay, so 2023. 2023 was just another year full of things, and things happened, and some of them were more fun than others, and things happened. And I think 24 is going to be another year in which things happen, and things will continue to happen, and some of them will be more fun than others, and some of them won't be. I think I've had the soul kicked out of me so long ago that I don't remember having one, and so therefore, I feel pretty mellow about the whole thing. And you know, as far as it becoming a new year, it's you know, how do you say this? I don't see it as a cause for either pessimism or optimism. Because it will be another year filled with things that happen, and some of those things will be more fun than others. How do you turn that into music? Well, making music is a way that makes some of that time more fun than others.
Mm.
You know, having something to work on is the cure for boredom. boredom is what you experience when the times aren't as good. I mean, obviously there are other things that you experience when the times aren't as good, like anger, hunger, heartbreak, pain of any sort. But but at least you can count on yourself to entertain yourself. And How would I say this? Interacting with music in any way. And I don't mean, I'm not talking about like, oh, I'm writing a record. I'm talking more about like the serious play aspect of music. Like, I'm just kind of screwing around, tapping out some beats, or, fooling around with some chords, or trying to, stretch my finger into that chord that, that jazz chord that most humans can't play, or whatever. Just keep trying it. It's all about you know, uh, finding that flow in which you can experience joy, in spite of whatever else is going on around you. Your music making should be like, I mean, it should be at least as good as the times that you take a good shit, right? You know, the whole world leaves you alone when you're making music, that being the comparison.
Thank you. Uh, I did actually really appreciate that. Thank you very much, Adam. Alex, hit me.
To be honest, my 2023 was for me kind of not totally bad. I think I have made a lot of get to knowing myself and to manage to deal with my own, I don't know, specialities, or maybe what makes life hard for me, and to understand what makes me tick better. But in far of as the world, I think we live in interesting times, not in the best sense, but the best thing is to just inhale and try to turn it into something beautiful, and maybe to not make it about yourself, but about try to reflect what you're seeing.
Excellent advice, man. Thank you. And by the way, camera and lighting looks fantastic. Well done. I'm jealous. Rezzy's happy too. Rezzy's so quiet today.
I don't even know if my audio is working.
We didn't hear that.
Let's
Well,
see.
we don't know if your audio is working either. Yeah. So you're welcome to shoot your mouth off. Everybody's welcome to shoot their mouth off here. And it is a question regarding like getting basically the ultimate thing of the question is, how do you keep going? And don't give me an answer of, oh, I don't have that problem, because I need to have, people, there will be a time in your life when you need to really navigate through things that some mighty sociological gaslighting that may convince you of some awful thing that you're not. I'm talking about confidence here. I'm talking about oh, my music shit or whatever. My thoughts on these things is write it down, document it, turn it into lyrics or turn it into music. There is a time to be calm and delicate and with your art, and there is a time not to be. There is a time to be quite ruthless and brutal. And I think that it's very important. It's funny to burst out of a planet's gravitational pull is an act of absolute violence. It requires defiance, being thrust, and it requires to be punching through the atmosphere violently so that you may escape that planet's gravity. And in this situation, a planet's gravity is a bad situation or something negative. And for you to do that, it requires a mighty act of will. And you need to figure out where, you know, where it comes from. On a side story, I thought I'd treat myself to a coffee the other day on my walk. There's a cafe in Hollywood called the Beechwood, and I always end up there, and they do frightfully expensive drinks, but I don't care. So I had myself a coconut latte. How fucking Hollywood is that? And thank you, Super Tablespoon. Expialidocious. So I went into the Beechwood, and I normally I get a mocha, and that's a mocha, not a mocha. Fuck you. And the lady, one of the ladies behind the huge fucking barista thing, said to me, "There you go, Dal." And there's only one culture in the world who can say, "There you go, Dal." And I said under my voice, "Aussie, Aussie, Aussie." And she went, "Oi, oi, oi." And I went, "Where you from?" I automatically went into my Australian falsetto. "Where you from?" And she was from Melbourne, and she's living in the Hollywood area. And we were talking, we had a really, really good conversation, and we were laughing out loud. Like, laugh, fill the cafe, and everybody put down their expensive lattes and goes, "They're terrorists, obvious." And we were having a really funny conversation that I haven't had in a long time. And the conversation was about nothing. But it was the manipulation of nothing into trying to create something funny was such a golden thing. And afterwards I said, "Hey man, thank you so much. I've been in this fantastic country for 15 years. And the only time I have to have these conversations is when I'm with another Australian." And she said, "Yeah, same." And it's just one of the, it's not like, oh, Americans are fucked and Australians are fucked. It's just that culturally there are different times when there's a little frequency and you match on that frequency. And it was nice to laugh. And the funny thing about laughing and the coffee, that horrendously expensive coffee, is that my brain started firing off into all these areas. There's a reason for this rant. And it's really funny that I am now convinced, it's laughter's the best medicine. But it's interesting how one of the most powerful forms of thrust to push away violently from a planet that is, its gravity is shitty and is getting you down, is laughing. Like, really fucking laughing. And I think that it's I've always tried to find laughter. One wonderful thing about Australian culture that I've noticed is that, and this is a generalization. Culture is a generalization. Anyway, one of the wonderful things about Australian humor I've noticed is that people will throw things into the center with the object to make people laugh, not to make them laugh at you or themselves, just to make you laugh. And it's like this group spirit in the middle that you're throwing your offering into to build that fire, the fire of ridiculous laughter, which sounds like it's a Bjork album. It should be a Bjork album. And pushing that further is that how do you, for you to do that, you have to be with people who don't want you to laugh at themselves or want to rule the conversation, just to throw an offering into the fire. And the objective is the fire becomes strong. Also finding people who are like that musically, intellectually, and with ideas and everything else is a real challenge. But that fire, whatever it is, helps you escape the planet's gravity. I hope that makes sense, because regular words have really let me down here. I don't really know what words to use to put together to convey this fantastical idea. So yeah, keeping your gear working and keeping everything streamlined, it really is like being a monk. And if anybody wants to interrupt me, please, because I fear I'm being boring. It's really, you're being a monk, and the most wicked evil that you're preaching against is the evil that's in you. And I really want to get back to saying positive things online, which I used to, but then I got shouted down for it. Big fuck you to those people. Really, fuck you. Those pathetic, poor, vile humans. I want to be positive, and I'm going to be positive. And I've contained my positivity to you and certain others, but I really want to be positive again. It's just fascinating that the poison that is inside me is the number one poison that I need to fight against. And all of those positive things that I say they're aimed at me. And they're aimed at me. Like, I spend my whole time walking around my house, my apartment, telling myself to keep going. And I know I'm not the only one. Because all of us we are in a difficult place. We are in this really strange psychological sludge. And it's so curious that the simple answer is go for a walk. Well, it's raining outside and I don't want to go for a walk. You know, here's something bad. I'm going to tell you guys something bad now. This is bad coming from Carl. I want you to get a pizza. And I want you to eat that fucking pizza. Now, here's a trick that you probably don't know. That when you cut a pizza with a knife and you go huachaka, it actually sends this spell that releases the calories and the excess carbs in those pizza, and they evaporate into the sky. And all you have to do is lean so that you don't inhale the carbs. And then they'll just dissipate in the room. Huachaka when you cut the pizza. No calories. Works on chocolate as well. Cut that chocolate, snap it in half and go huachaka. You can even do it in your mouth while you're crunching down, but you've got to exhale those calories out and they're gone. That's scientific fact. Adam, top that. Or add to the fire.
I'm at a loss now. I was going to go back to your story about like talking to the woman at the coffee shop.
Just say her name was Magenta.
Oh,
And
no
I
shit.
said, can I call you Madge? And she goes, no. And we just both exploded in laughter, because in Australian, if you've got, several syllables, it's just the one syllable. And she goes, I don't want you to call me Madge because do you remember on Neighbours there was that woman who smoked and had the gravelly voice named Madge, and we just both lost our shit again. But she was actually from Mullumbimby, which is a small town near where I went to university. I went, oh my God, because when she said I'm from Melbourne, I went, oh my God, in a very Australian accent. My sister's in Melbourne, my best friend's in Preston. And sure enough, we knew somebody in common. And we had a joke about that. But then she said, oh, yeah, I'm from Mullumbimby. And I went, oh, my God, I went to university in Lismore, which is like 2 towns over. And then we had this big conversation about magic and about how, and I'm in your time now, I apologize, about how that area there's a mountain there called Mount Warning, and it's a female Aboriginal, what's called a secret women's place. So it's a sacred mountain. And then about 100 kilometers west, southwest, there's the Nimbin Cliffs, or the Nimbin Cliffs, and they're these beautiful cliffs, and they're a secret male's business place. And so there's 2 really spiritual hot areas in the one place. Plus, it's based on what's called an old growth forest, which is this ancient forest that's built on volcanic. It's just the most magical, beautiful area. And it makes the craziest marijuana in the world called Mullumbimby Madness. That will absolutely fuck you up. Anyway, so there you go. And the peoples of that area are called the Gundal Jindabar people. And they taught me about the importance of knowing who the traditional landowners are. That's why at the beginning of every Art of Rock, I acknowledge the Tongva for being the original original landowners, because that's really important in Aboriginal culture. So there you go. And it all came back to Neighbours with Charlene and Jason. So Adam, I'm going to mute my mic now, and you're going to say something profoundly.
Okay, well, interestingly enough, you set me up pretty well with your conversation about magic, although now you've got me distracted with the thoughts of incredible marijuana that now I wish to try. But yeah, so I know we have a very well read crowd here. And while you were talking about your story about meeting Magenta, I was thinking about the Celestine prophecy, and there's a piece in that story that has always kind of stuck with me. And the idea, in a nutshell, is that every conversation is an opportunity. And if you're open to it, you'll find out what the purpose of that conversation is, if that makes sense. Um, and it sounds to me like, you had kind of one of those moments where it's like, um, sometimes those moments can lead to some pretty crazy shit. That's pretty much how Diana and I met, was like, we just started talking because, we were hanging out with a group of friends or whatever, and there was things going on, and, you just have to be open to the conversation. That's, I think the nutshell of it.
Mm. I think
There's a lesson you can learn from anyone, from everyone's experience. Everyone has experiences. You can learn something from everyone.
I have this thing that I try and do, that every time I go out, I pray to the universe, although I do want to kick the universe in the groin all the time, because the universe doesn't give a fuck anyway, that I will meet someone and I'm going to help them find their healing magic. Like, that's what I want to do. And always, every time I do that, I will meet someone and we end up helping each other find the healing magic. It's interesting as well, let's talk about the universe, that I did I've been experimenting with the concept of, so there's the idea that there's a light, like it's a spotlight, and that light is a good thing. And all you have to do is walk into that light. Man, this is I wish Kerry was here. This is a Kerry conversation. Anyway, all you need to do is walk into that light. So I've been experimenting with trying to walk into the light, but also like pray, spellcast good things that I can actually track the metric of. And what's interesting is that it works. Now, we can the reason, I don't know the reason it works, but something it's doing to me is, if I keep going, I want to increase Spotify plays, or something like that. My brain starts thinking, how can I increase Spotify plays? And then I start doing all these things to increase Spotify plays. Now, I don't want to remove any magic from the equation, that I'm sure that there is that there is a higher power that is in me and in you, that is being focused and is this is an Ivan conversation as well, that is bending and I don't want to use the word manipulating, but influencing things around me. But more importantly, it's changing me. More importantly, it's putting my faith into work. And, when I was doing my Christian Academy thing, the thing that always came back to was, faith without work is nothing. That it's fine to call out to the universe saying, I want X, Y, and Z happening. I want a robot hand. But that's an IT crowd reference. It comes back to, you have to allow yourself to take the steps required for you to do your part of the deal there too. And I think that, I don't know if I think positive thinking does work. What I just said was fantastic. I think positive thinking works. Yeah, that's actually interesting. You got to get rid of, in order to get a robot hand, you have to cut your hand off. But what if I want a third hand? Anyway, that part of the thing is that the part of the great change is it's change that happens in you. And it's change where you go, I am going to work towards the thing that I want. And that once again involves you being trapped on a planet and you requiring the thrust to break free of the planet and the act of violence to punch through its atmosphere. And that takes a lot. And yes, absolutely building neurological pathways. Because it's so easy in confinement to lose yourself. It feels like it's a black hole. It's a point in my mind, in my brain. I know where it is. It's kind of, if I drew a line probably there, and there, it's right in the middle where I just sink into this place, and it's a really bad place. It's a bad planet. And I spend so much of my energy trying to break free of that place. And, you know, increasingly, man, thank you, Super Tablespoon. Kickstarting the new Ice Planet 9000 track album next week, by the way. Anyway, point is that to break free of that, it's really difficult. And increasingly, I am meeting people who say, I will update that to saying increasingly so many people I know are saying that they're having a problem, that they're pinned to their chair or they're pinned to the bed or they're pinned to the desk scrolling and they can't break free of it because there's something neurologically going on in the brain that just goes shut down. And something I found, I'm going to pimp Doctor Who again, is that I find, you know, I said this before that, you know, Tubi, Tubi.tv, Tubi.tv now has a whole bunch of sci-fi on it. And they've got all of Tom Baker Doctor Who. And I'm finding that if I watch that after one episode, I'm really bored. I love Doctor Who, but I'm really, really fucking bored. So I've got to do something, but I want to keep watching it. So what I'll do is I'll do my tax. Or I'll do admin stuff that will allow me to have Doctor Who trying to figure out how to fight the Daleks again. And meanwhile, I'm actually doing something. Whether that is fixing components or because I've seen this episode since I was fucking 10. So I know exactly what happens. But it is really invigorating my desire to make model spaceships. I'll tell you that now. And from the beginnings of wasting relaxing to getting motivated to do something, to using that relaxing thing as a cane, a walking mechanism, a helping mechanism to start building, then doing something, then turning it off, then turning on a vinyl. Booyah. Because my whole thing is if I can turn on vinyl and work, I'm in the zone. Or turn it off, have my headphones on, and be making music. And actually, increasingly, it's funny that one thing I am doing is I will have, for Ice Planet 9000, I have a whole bunch of things that I'll have on the screen that are just clocking over. That every now and then I'll glance at, or I don't even glance at it because I'm too busy making music, but because I'm seeing spaceships or stuff like that, or with Angel Spit, it's, you know, Francis Bacon paintings and Geiger paintings and stuff like that. Just where I can start, you know. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got. Just believe in yourself. Oh, Jesus, that's so hard. Another really interesting thing, unless anybody wants to interrupt me, is that I've been listening to Rick Rubin and I'm really in two minds about what Mr. Rubin is saying, because like, hey man, the guy's a Grandmaster Jedi, like fucking Yoda. But it's like, I don't know. I guess, you know, it's a balance. It's funny. One of the things is balance. It's the balance between what it is you want to do, being true to yourself and judda, and creating something that people are going to want to invest in, invest their time, invest their money, invest their listenership, turn up to your show. because on my experience, if I am absolutely true to myself, very few people are going to want to hear it, and it's not going to pay my rent. And gee, sorry guys, I need to pay my rent. It's like the conversation we've had often, where your music is like food. It's like a restaurant where you can make this amazing meal that is really amazing, and it costs you a whole bunch of money. It took you a whole bunch of time, and everybody who tastes it, like there might be only 5 people at the table, but they go, wow, that was a hell of a meal, man. And they'll be remembering that meal for a month or a year or something, versus hamburger that you buy at a fast food joint. And that hamburger sold over 1 million copies of itself. And there are steps that you take towards that you might want to ask yourself, how much of my food do I want to commoditize so that my art can become more available? And the last step is putting it between 2 sesame seed buns. That's a conversation. And I see Adam's hand. I see Alex's hand too. Adam, shoot.
Just a quick comment that, like, from, you know, to kind of follow what you were saying there, is like, I think that we have to give ourselves permission to do things that come seemingly easy to us. Like one of the things that we often do as artists, and I know I'm guilty of this myself, and I think a lot of you are going to recognize this character, is the thing where it wasn't hard enough, therefore it must not be good enough. Yeah, see, everybody's laughing right now. You've all done that, haven't you? And I think one of the things, I mean, again, following what you were saying there, I think one of the things that we have to do to you know, get over some of these humps that you've been discussing is really just to kind of give ourselves permission to do the damn thing. And sure, you know, if it seems like it comes easy to you, like, and this is really comes from the whole Rick Rubin thing, right? Because Rick Rubin, as you said, he's a genius, but like for what, like his kind of attitudes about stuff is kind of like, well, kind of like anybody could have done it, I'm just the one who did, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like a handful of the producers have made comments that, you know, you kind of get this idea that they're like, you know, I don't know what it is. It just happened and I did it and people liked it. And that was, and so I think it's important for us to give ourselves permission to accept when things are easy for us, as much as we do when things are difficult, or when things are like, you know, we love a good challenge, but you know, as my grandfather would have said, pick your cherries when they're ripe.
Thank you. I will also say, Alex, I see your hand. I will also say that let's just remember that gee, that's a beautiful mansion you have, Rick. 2, the music that Rick works on is music that is written by people who are neurologically freaks, in that they have an ability to write a hot song. Look at the people he's worked on. Like, they're fucking good songwriters. So yeah, once somebody brings a plate of gold to you, gold and diamonds, because that's what that shit is. It's gold and fucking diamonds. You know, can you go wrong with a 9 Inch Nails album? Come on, really? Or Smashing Pumpkins? Or you look at the shit that guy's done. Sure, by that point, you can go, oh yeah, we can do whatever we want, and we can do, you know, we can be true to ourselves and true to the songs. Sure. But you got to remember the triple A list of brilliant songwriters the guy's working with, as opposed to us, who are really struggling to put the whole thing together. And that might be part of the interpretation that I'm getting lost in. That, you know, what is a message that can go out to, you know, I'm looking at the comments, and I'm looking at these people that are saying I can't write a good song and no one listens to my music. It's like, I want to come back to this because I don't want to talk too much about Alex. Go, Alex.
So I think my experience is a bit different regarding whether you should put all your energy into one piece of art, because I feel like for myself, if I want to get better as a creator, as a music maker, it's better to just make lots of different things, like the cooking method, instead of like trying to cook one really fancy meal from the beginning. It's better for me to just cook 100 fried eggs, 100 sandwiches, maybe 1,000, and just get better at the basics. So if I try a really prestigious meal, I know the basics. I know how the oil works. I know how to spice things. So I think it depends where you're at.
Yeah. I really appreciate that. Thank you for bringing it back to like the fundamental core that ultimately write a good song, write a good melody, and a good melody is something that you might hum. Write a good beat, and you know what? Maybe with that sort of ethos things happen. You know, definitely with that ethos things happen. Like focus on the actual craft of writing a song. Does anybody else want to jump in on this? Because there is actually something like this is a huge thing that we could keep talking about, or I want to talk about the economy of remixing. Okay. So I'm trying to figure out a, I'm trying to think, like I'm spitballing. And I don't do, this is about remixing. This is about somebody does me a remix and I want to, I want to do something for them in return, but I don't want to trade because I'm really done with trading remixes. And, you know, sometimes somebody might give you a remix that's amazing and you might give them a remix that's not so amazing. I don't think that's a good trade. Or they might give you something that's not so amazing and you have to give them something that's amazing because it's your name. That's also not a good trade. Sometimes you get paid, sometimes you don't get paid. So my question is that one thing I'm sort of toying around the idea of that if there was a I'm going to cut you into streaming royalties, what's a number that is fair? And I know it's a case by case thing, but what's like a like I can't really cut people into Bandcamp things because I believe divvying up Bandcamp shares is not that Bandcamp don't have that option. Whereas, you know, DistroKid, you can say X% goes to this person, X% goes to another. So let's just say Adam and I do remixes for each other. Tell me about that split, Adam.
Well, okay. So first of all, remixes. So the best thing about remixes, right, is getting your song played to different audiences in different environments, right? The other advantage to having a remix is clout, right? So if you have a name remixing your track, well, it must be something worth remixing, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't have done it. And so you have that, like, you know, some people will buy a single just because they see I'm one of these people, by the way, that will buy a single just because I see that a producer I like has done a remix of it, because I'll be like, that is probably something I'm going to want to play in the club because that remixer makes a lot of things that I like to play in the club. So the actual return on investment monetarily probably doesn't exist. It's an added, it's like a bonus thing, bonus tracks. It gives a single some meat, but it doesn't in itself necessarily sell the single. I think when you made a perfect statement right before we transition to this, is write good songs. Good songwriting remixes well. good songwriting remixes well. I can take any piece of crap song and cut the shit out of it and make something quite abstract from that rocks the fucking dance floor, because what I've really done is written a new dance track from which I have sampled this other thing, right? Or I can remix your song so that it still sounds like your song. It still has the hooks of your song. It still has you singing on it. It is your song, and I have done a complete remix, from the acapella, but I am creating a new structure of your song. But so as far as the number for $300, I will take anything and polish it up the best that I can.
I can't pay you $300. See, the whole point of the conversation is that, and thank you, that was a good rant. It was a very, very good rant. The question is that what is a percentage that I can type into DistroKid that is legal and fair and isn't going to make you feel like you're being fucked?
Can I continue answering that?
Please.
Okay. I honestly don't think, like, from the remixer's perspective, you will probably never make, I'm going to say this, like, in our scene, right? I mean, I'm not talking about like, Todd Terry or some shit who made a fortune on the Everything But the Girl remix because radio, but like, most of us won't see anything come back to us from having 50% on a remix track. It's such a small percentage of the actual album or the actual release anyway. So it's like, you're 50 cents on the dollar, maybe at the most on like Bandcamp or something. Maybe, you might get a quarter, 50 cents or something. Personally, I would rather be paid $300 and do it as a work for hire, because I know I'll be able to pay my electric bill that month if I do that. Whereas if I sit on it and try to take, I would rather just like take, the only credit I want on it is my name. I know I've said that to you. I've said that to a bunch of artists. Like, you and I trade. I'm also willing to do things in trade. I don't mind doing things in trade. Mostly, I will do something. To be perfectly honest with you, the remixes I like are the ones that I did because I was like, hey, I really like your song. Can I remix it? Or the ones where I'm like, like, again, it comes down to that good songwriting thing where it has a good structure that I can remix it well. Ambassador has a great structure and you can remix that infinitely, and so that's one of my favorite remixes because I felt like I was able to do something kind of different and clever with it and kind of justify the thing. As you said, to produce a good remix because, it's your name on it. That's what I want. I want my name on it because it's a good remix. Doing a work for hire, a band gets in touch with me and they're like, hey, I heard this remix that you did for Angel Spit. Could you do something for my band? And I'd be like, okay, let me check out the tracks and like, okay, like this one's, I might not love it, but I'd be like, okay, I can do something with this, and or whatever. I would rather get paid like, just, treat it like a decent bar gig, I guess. If you throw me $300 for the thing, I'm probably going to put a shit ton of hours into the stupid thing because what I'm really doing is I'm going to go exploring and play with my software and my create sounds and mess around and do things that will ultimately increase my skills and what have you. But yeah, as far as that goes, I don't, if you're doing a 50-50 split on a track because you've co-written it or because you've done I would say doing a remix from the acapella and that sort of thing, I would say that's worth a 50-50 split if you're going to do it that way. But I don't think that most of us in this scene in this independent scene that we're a part of, as clever as we are, we don't really sell a lot. So works for hire, works for trade, doesn't have to necessarily be remix for remix trade. Like, if you, do it for artwork, do it for, like I'll trade you a remix if I like your paintings, you can send me a painting, I'll do a remix for you. If I like your crochet or your knitting or something, I'll trade you a remix for a nice sweater. But it's like I don't think that, I mean, again, as a remixer, I don't think that I really care about splitting the royalties so much as getting the credit for it, and feeling like I've been compensated for my work in some way. Sometimes that compensation is just like, hey, you won first prize in my remix contest and we're going to put it on the record. That's
Okay.
that was great compensation as far as I'm concerned. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. I mean,
Alright.
that gives me well, it's something that gives you, I mean, it's a greater sense of satisfaction than $300 could buy.
All right, but not as good as a sweater. I
A
want
sweater
to.
would be pretty awesome. If you'd like to send me a sweater, I don't mind. You can make me a sweater, Carl, if you need a project.
I'll make you a sweater. All right, thank you very much, Adam. Alex, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
So at a totally different position. I'm not a pro, so I think for me a remix for somebody else would be the best benefit would be to just have like one more connection. This leads to my stuff, like a link on the Spotify page, or maybe a link in a booklet, and so there are more connections to my stuff, and so more potential for future listeners. Yeah, and I think that's much more important for where I'm at than getting like a split. However, if I were to do a split, I would probably think of it like if it's like a new track, and maybe the lyrics have like a certain percentage as industry stranded, and maybe the composition has a certain like a certain cut, and I would do it if like the person wrote like half of the song. How would we split it then? But none of the lyrics, so I would go by that. Like, I don't know what it would be, like maybe a quarter or something, but I would go about it like it was like a new track and the person wrote parts of it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Brazzy, tell me your thoughts.
Well, I wasn't kidding when I didn't know if my audio was working. So is that even a fact?
Your audio is A-OK.
Okay, good. So by default, I would say for anything, you're trying to keep it simple here. So make sure your distro digital distributor for the song supports splits, and just be generous and cut them in at 46%, 4 to 6%, not 46. That's more than a producer usually gets for a song. Say 7 if you're going crazy, like if you really like their stuff. And there's some negotiating room.
Hold
there,
on,
but
I'm sorry. What percentage?
4, maybe 5, 6, 7 if you're being
7%.
being super generous. But
Okay.
there's more. If they made a major contribution to the melody or changed a hook or added something, then it's time to start talking about cutting them in on the songwriting split side of it too. So you cut them in on the PRO also and give them a writer's portion of the credit. This stuff doesn't necessarily add up to anything with the numbers that we're talking about, but when it does, then at least, you've got them in as a legitimate collaborator to the thing, using this sort of, obviously this stuff is so wide ranging. There could be any number in those places, but like on the sales royalty side, you could go to 10% if you really want to give them something. And on this, if it's just a remix using your hooks, your lyrics, your beats and stuff, you could end there. If it is somebody that brings something absolutely novel to the thing and it becomes a collaborative work, cut them in on the songwriter side. And if they change your lyrics, cut them in on that too.
Thank you. Yeah, and if you're listening to this freaking out, going, what? 6%, 5 to 10% is standard. In fact, 5% standard. I in the real world, maybe a fee plus 5%, or maybe thingo. I see your hand, Adam. I want to throw this to Brett first. Thanks, Resi. I really appreciated that.
Yeah, it sounds like Resi has much better numbers. My going into it, my thinking of it was, at the end of the day, the original artist is the reason the song exists to remix. So, most of the people coming to remix something either, have some sort of take on it, or they're trying to get a name for themselves, or they've got, they're trying to get some sort of exposure. And so I don't, early on we were kind of, talking, some of the numbers, fees and things like that. I think that's going to very, very much depend upon who you're talking to, in terms of like any kind of negotiation. But my thinking, as far as like an overall percentage, the original artist is just well above 80% of everything. I don't know the exact numbers. There wouldn't be a remix if it wasn't for that.
All right, thanks. Thank you, Brett. So just to give some background information, I guess I'm spitballing this because I'm maybe going to be going into this position. I don't know. I might be. Plus, this is something that's going to be coming up, is that increasingly people can't afford to pay whatever the wage of a remixer is. Like, if I did a remix album, it's going to cost a whole bunch of money, because if I want 10 remixes on it, I can't even afford to get them mastered anymore. That's just how the economics of music has changed. And my thing is that I can't, when I spend 80 to 120 hours on a remix, maybe 80 hours now, thanks technology, swapping it out with somebody who spent 20 hours, to me, isn't fair. Plus, when I do a remix, I push the shit out of it. I pimp that fucking thing. I pimp that to my DJs. I pimp it. Not many people do that. In fact, I'm going to go out and say I can't think of anybody off the top of my head who does that, not even labels. But my question is that I can't, due to my time and everything else, do someone a trade. But it's really interesting. I keep going, I'm going to do a remix album. And then it's like, I look at it and go, no, I can't do it. I can't. And see, here's the other thing, is that if you're going to do a remix album, I'm always in this bind, because it's like, I want to give young artists and people who are doing it for shits and giggles the opportunity to remix a track. But the problem is that not everybody understands that this is moving towards, remixing is a commodity. The album's art, remixing's commodity. You can argue with me on that. I don't care. I don't fucking have the fucking energy anymore. But the job of your remix is for you to hit a new or different or same audience but bigger. That's what I need you to do, because when you come to me, that's my job. It's not to fuck around and do whatever the fuck I want. I have a specific duty to promoting your product. That's what I'm doing. That's why I do it. And if you disagree, I don't fucking care. Don't do a remix for me. And I won't do a remix for you. But part of that is, this is a remixing to me is a promotional strategy. That's it. It's to get that audience to listen to it, or those DJs to play it, or whatever. So a lot of young remixers don't know about that, or don't care about that, because they're not getting paid, or they're doing this for shits and giggles, and they're just going to masturbate. And that's great. But the problem is, I want to help those young remixers, and I want to give those people the opportunity. but sometimes it backfires because what I get is not, it's not a marketable thing. And once again, oh no, Carl's talking about marketing and commodity. A remix is a commodity. If you want to argue, don't. Just fucking don't. I don't care. Your album is a piece of art. And once again, we could argue, but I don't care. As far as I'm concerned, your album's a piece of art. And the job of my remix on your album, on your track, is to get it to Angel Spit fans, that they will like it, they will click on it, and they will buy your shit off Bandcamp, that they will listen to it on Spotify or any other streaming service, that I'm going to send it to 400 plus DJs, and 20%, 50% are going to at least open the fucking email, and I don't know how many are going to play it. It's promotion. So what, so if somebody says to me, you know, back in the olden days, record labels would give you a budget of $5,000 to do a remix album. And you're going to have a Skinny Puppy remix on it. And they're going to take $2,000. And then you're going to have a bunch of other bands and you're going to be paying them and getting it professionally mastered. That's what used to happen. But that doesn't happen anymore. Bands master their own stuff. So all the tracks sound different because it's all been mastered differently. And bands don't really understand anymore, I don't think. Or maybe younger bands don't understand. I guess, I don't know. I just want to, I'm trying to find the balance of how do I help people here and how do I help myself? Because I need to help myself because the voices in my head say, oh, you shouldn't help yourself because that's selfish, but fuck, man. So Adam, go.
Okay. So many thoughts going on here. So the first thing I'm going to say is I completely agree with you that a remix is a commodity. It is absolutely a promotion, and you know, it is definitely a promotional expense. I right when you were talking about, you know, the number of hours that you spent working on a remix, I had just written the word time on my scrap here, and I do think that's a big thing. Like, it is time, it is work. You know, work, time is a commodity. You know, it's work. And then you brought up the concept of value, which is another thing that I have written on here, and it's not necessarily return on investment; it's value, right? And that's what you're talking about when you say, like, I spend 60 or 80 hours on a remix, and then somebody who I'm trading with gives me a remix they spent 20 hours on. Well, I'll tell you this though, if they only spent 20 hours on a remix and it fucking kicks ass because they are a really good producer and they can work really quickly and create kick-ass stuff in 20 hours, fucking don't care how much time they spent on it. They shouldn't care how much time I spent on it either. What they should care about is the finished product. And what you should get, like when you bring awesome to your product, they should bring awesome to their product in return. That's just, you know, kind of fair play. So the other thing that I was thinking about there is when you're talking about, like, oh, you know, like some people are just kind of doing it for shits and giggles and some people are doing this for real. And that goes back to the idea of clout again. You know, but in the other direction, in that, like, before I said, part of the reason that you would have a remix on your album in the first place is because it gives you clout to be associated with these other artists that that are producing these remixes for you. The remixer also gets clout, which is why I want my name on the fucking thing, so that people will be like, oh, DJ Atom Bomb, he remixed for Angel Spit, he remixed for Spider Lilies, you know, whatever the fuck it is, he remixed for this band, he remixed for that band. Did you hear the remix he did for these guys? And then that way, maybe later they'll be like, hey, $300 sounds like a pretty fucking good deal to have you do a remix for me that is from the acapella. And that is something that I want to also, it was the thing that I wanted, I asked Rozzy to clarify when I was in the chat there, but I think he really, he kind of answered it but I want to clarify this, that what Rozzy was talking about with those first bass percentages, that's like taking the song and everything that comes with it and creating a new mix of that, like not recomposing the thing, just saying like, oh, you know what, your rough mix is really good, but I'm going to clean that up for you. I'm gonna, and like, so, the EQing is different, the balances are different, maybe the overall, production of the thing, maybe there's some added composition or sounds or whatever, but nothing significant enough to claim a composition credit, which would, as Rozzy was saying, require you to add something so significant to it that it changes the song significantly enough. You've brought a new melody to it. Okay, so on the flip side of that, what I was talking about when I said a 50-50 split, I am talking about taking nothing but their lyrics and their vocal track and creating an entirely new composition out of that, rearranging their piece, but creating all of the sounds and creating the entire composition and creating an entirely different flow, an entirely different interpretation of the lyric and the original melody. And often that includes changing the melody, or creating new melodies to go along with those melodies, inspired by those melodies, if you will. And so I just wanted to kind of clarify that there's a huge spectrum between those. Right, there's a big spectrum between taking all of the original elements and creating a new balanced mix of those. That is technically remixing, but as he said, it's more like engineering, right? When we're talking about DJ remixes, we are talking about essentially recomposing the music of the song. Like, sometimes we will use elements of the original tracks, like say, oh, I'm going to take that guitar line and I'm going to cut that thing up, along with these vocals or whatever. In which case I would say we probably deserve slightly less credit for the thing. The more that we use of the original, the less we have contributed to the actual creation of something new from that original, and it becomes more like the original when we do that. So to Carl's point, that again, when I mentioned earlier, I said I could take pretty much any song and like cut it up and make a new song out of it. But when I'm doing a remix for a band that's like, oh, it's going to be on their record, the idea there is to, the song has to be familiar, right? Like, you want the verses there, you want the bridges there, you want the choruses there, you want all the hooks, to be there. But you are completely rewriting everything else, the entire instrumentation of that. And that's where that it flips over into songwriting, the more of that you bring. The reason I said 50-50 right from the beginning is that's basically like what I do, is like completely recompose the thing. But yeah, to sort of clarify that there's a spectrum there on the term remix in itself. And I think that hits all the things. Let's see: commodity, time, value, clout, definition of remix. I'm good. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Alex.
Yeah, I think I agree with Adam. The term remix encompasses a huge spectrum of things, from maybe like bootleg remix I made from, I don't know, something, and try to cleverly filter out the vocals and then add stuff to it and maybe upload it on YouTube without any seeing a penny, to like something like you say, where it's like strategic in order to maybe broaden your audience, and maybe make maybe the remixer's audience warm up to your sound and your kind of music. Yeah, so I really think depends, but I respect that. Of course, it has to fill a certain role for you in order to justify the time and maybe the expenses you pay for it. However, it would be interesting to hear what you would expect or maybe want from a remix done for you.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you. We'll get onto that one. I want to hear Resi first, though. Thank you very much, Alex.
That was actually part of where I was going to go with it, is like the purpose of this. I mean, we're talking as primarily independent artists who are producers and songwriters and own all of our material and don't have masters that are owned by a label that wants to get involved for the most part. So we're in this position of, Carl, you're making the comparison between the remixes being the commodity and the songs being the art. But I don't know, maybe I can't decide which way I fall on this, honestly. There's certainly more than one reason to get a remix. And we are kind of talking, I think, about club mixes here, not like we're going to hire Bob Clearmountain to make sure it sounds really good on the radio versus the album version. You know, we're going to send a different version around to get onto American Bandstand. That's a whole different thing. But like, I'm coming from this position where I wrote a whole album full of not club mixes, and I have a desire to have DJ friendly club mixes, some of which I'm going to do, some of which I'm having remixers do. But I've hit that point personally where I'm communicating with the person that's doing the mix. One, because I already know what they do and I like what they do and I want that mojo or that style. Two, because we can communicate, and I know I can tell them what I'm looking for and why I'm looking for it, and they can come back to me. And maybe there's revisions, maybe there's not, but there's a collaborative effort there, which leads me to be more inclined to give them points, you know, and be a little generous with that stuff. No, the other point I wanted to sort of think about is two of my most streamed works on the DSPs are remixes that I did for somebody else. For one of them might have been a fee, and one of them, none of them are for points. I don't see any royalties on them, but it's a little bit funny that that's the case. And one of my higher streamed numbers of my own stuff is a remix that somebody else did of my stuff, but it was highly collaborative. So, man, I don't know. It's more food for thought, and it's definitely a lot more to think about. But I believe I'm coming down on the side of it's more about the relationships. And Carl, I'm interested in what you feel beholden to the other your collaborators for, like you're saying, to bring people who might not have a chance to do that, to give them some exposure. Like, maybe I'm so far out of it that, or not capable of really offering that doesn't resonate. But it's an interesting angle, and man, I don't even know if I have a question more on that, or I'm just interested in where you're coming from, and if any of the things that I'm saying sort of fit into that.
Yeah. Well, that's why this is a really interesting topic, because we're not talking about how to do a remix. We're talking about the economics of remixes. Firstly, I will say that my experience on doing a big boy remix for a big band, going a cappella and changing the whole fucking thing, you get 10%, 5%. And that's not just doing a mix of it. And that's what I want to address, because I think that's bullshit. That I was, you know, while you guys are talking, I did a breakdown of my hours, and I get paid $5 an hour to do a remix. You know, I know it's not about the money, but when you can't pay your rent, it's about the money. And you know, and hey man, I'm fucking lucky that I'm getting paid $5 an hour to do a fucking remix. So, you know, so here's what I think a remix album, like the ultimate remix album to me, is it's 2 or 3 name bands who are going to give you a remix that are going to hit the fucking mark. That's what we want. You know, and now if I get Adam to do a remix, he's going to hit the mark. That shit's going to get played. So that's what I would call the mark. Is it's going to get played on dance floors. It's going to get played on podcasts. It won't get played on I Die You Die because those assholes don't play anything I fucking send them. The fuck is your problem? I've been doing this shit for 20 fucking years. I pimp your station, but you don't fucking scratch my back. Anyway, but they'll get played on other things like, you know, Josh on Fortress Triple Z, who's a fucking legend, who is such an awesome guy for the community. He will play it, and so many other DJs will as well. So that's the first thing. That there is the reason that the mark is the reason that the remix for me gets done, and that is to get played. To a new audience, to people who aren't into Angel Spit, who might be into what Adam does, it's going to get played. A lot of people are into what Adam does. The next thing is, so that's the top tier. The next thing is 6 tracks, 5 tracks, I don't know. Another third of the remix album are bands that are a similar level to me, who have done something interesting, and it's still fulfilling the wow, this is really interesting. I really like this one. I might not listen to it in the track, but when I'm driving to work, I'm gonna fucking play this album. This remix is great. Then there is the other third, and I'm just pulled the third out of my ass, who are a bunch of young bands that no one's ever heard of. And this is my way of feeding back into the pool, positively giving people a leg up. Because I got my start by doing remixes. That a bunch of bands said, you're the weirdest fucking fuck I've ever heard, but I'll let you do a remix. So I got slowly, little by little. And I think that for me, at least, it's really important that I have the opportunity to help others as I have been helped, to help the community, to take a risk. But the thing about that risk is that you've got to be good enough to get in the doors. That's the fucking thing. And it's difficult for me because I like arty weird shit. And when I get an arty weird shit remix, I'm going to like it by someone who's done 2 or 3 remixes, and you can tell that they're only starting out, and I really fucking like it. But I know that it's such a horrendous, it's a risk for me to put it on a Bandcamp release, a digital release, because it could detract from, it could dilute the potency of the album, of the remix album. And when I first started, you know, when we did the Surgically Atoned remix album, I remember Patrick pointed out these 3 remixes and he said, you're not putting them on the album. And I said, but they're my friends, they're my colleagues, they've helped me, and I want to scratch their back. And he goes, you don't understand, this is hurting the integrity of the album. And I don't like that. I have a problem with that. But that's business. Patrick was right. When I re-released it on Bandcamp, all extra tracks were included. They were all included. But as far as printing that CD, he was right. And that's what's really difficult, is that I want to help you. I want to give you a leg up. And knowing that I'm going to push the shit out of what you do, I will fucking promote the fuck out of what you do. But it's got to be good enough. It can't be too arty. As much as I like arty, for me, and I stress 1,000 times, this is me. This is what I have learned, is that a remix album is a commodity. It has a job and a task to achieve, and that is a mathematical job based on metrics. An album for me is, let's try all this weird shit. So that's why, and it's you know, I'm in a similar like I have a couple of bands that the biggest thing that they've ever had is their Angel Spit remix. They get 100% of the royalties on that. It's all theirs because they paid me, so it's all yours. Or we traded, so it's all yours. But the root question here is, and also some of my top plays are remixes. But the ongoing question I have is, if I can't afford to pay you, and if I can't afford to give you a swap, knowing that if your remix got picked up by some playlist on Tidal, Spotify, Pandora, Apple, Amazon, you could stand to make royalties that could last you 20 years. Because I have remixes that are 20 years old that are still making royalties. Because that's a really excellent thing about our fucking community, is that as soon as something, they add golden oldies real quick. And what you release today could still be getting played in 20 years' time. And I just want to say to Ido Uday, fucking play me, but thank you for all the years that you bastards have put into it, because you've brought some fantastic music to this genre, and you've got some fucking really put some bands where they need to be. So good on you, blokes. Play my fucking music. Adam, go.
I have a handful of notes here. Going right back to what you were saying about Patrick talking about, you know, sort of diluting the power of the CD, and then releasing it complete on Bandcamp. I think one of the major considerations there is just the physical space on the media, right? I mean, obviously the promotions is a big part of that as well.
No, it wasn't. We were still under 80 minutes. With all bands, it was still under 80 minutes. He was concerned that the actual quality of the remixes, and the remixes sounded like weird Australian industrial music, like Severed Heads. That's what it sounded like. And so for me, I'm going, yeah, fucking Network, Severed Heads, Volition, all about it. But for Patrick, looking at it from the perspective of what Patrick does, it didn't make sense. And I think Patrick's decision was correct.
To continue, would that have been the 100% remix?
There was that he didn't want to put on.
No, that particular.
Yeah, that was on the that was Surgically Atoned.
Okay. So the first thing I heard from Angel Spit was the promo that had the 100% remix on it by a popular artist at the time that I don't feel the need to mention. And that one hit the clubs because it was well structured for clubs, because it was written by an artist, or that it was remixed by an artist, I should say, that was currently popular in the clubs. And you know, their style was how would you say, you know, in the popular vein, the Depeche Mode of the day. And so remixing is definitely a way that people find your stuff, especially on a dance floor, especially if the original is not really dance music, if that makes sense. You know, like there's music you can dance to, and then there's dance music. So like you can dance to the original, but the remix is dance music. Like it doesn't change what you're doing on the dance floor. It's not, you know, it's made for dancing. It's made to be dance floor friendly. Remixing Angel Spit. You've done things a few different ways. Like, you know, I think personally, I'm one of those cats that I'm like, oh, if you give me a toy, I'm going to play with it for a while. But when you did the contest thing, and then you picked the winners, and you released kind of, you know, you did do a multi-sided, I guess, you know, multi-disc release for that one, or you know, it had two parts, I should say. And one part was the sort of like, well, here are the winners, and you know, sort of some of the ones that got the top marks or top votes or whatever it was, and then, you know, here's the rest, you know, and you know, you kind of give people the opportunity to peruse it at their own leisure, make up their own minds. You know, of course, most people, at least in the DJ world, that are going to be playing it in the club, they're going to listen to it, they're going to be like, yeah, I can play that. That's about what you get. 10 seconds or so. In 10 seconds, if I listen to a song for 10 seconds, I have a pretty strong idea as to whether or not I'm ever going to play it, where I'm going to play it, what I would use it for. But that's experience, and that's, you know, I made that comment in the chat over here, that the other thing that I forgot when I was ranting before was experience. And I don't just mean the experience to like engineer you a good product, but the experience to know what products to engineer, you know, to know the audience well enough, and to know to know how they're going to respond to the things that you do, to know the tricks of the trade, so to speak. Which is, I do want to say, Rozzy, before I go any further, send me some stems, because there's a couple on your record that that I would like to have a little fun with. And this goes back again to what you said way back, Carl, about the good songwriting, is that Rozzy is one of those dudes that writes songs that can be remixed in a whole, I mean, like truly an infinite number of ways. Good songwriting is good songwriting. And so the finished product will always depend on that, on the songwriting, you know. And when a remixer is remixing your product, they are also songwriting. Does that make sense? So if the remixer's songwriting is good, it will take your good song and make a good song for a different audience, for a different purpose, if that makes sense. Let me see. Was there anything else on my mind? I don't think so, but I do think it was interesting what you said about, you know, continuing to get royalties 20 years later. That is obviously not something that I experience, but and you know, but you also mentioned having done works for hire, they own it, whatever. And I think that kind of shows the different types of relationships that we have as remixers with the artists that we're remixing. Like, you know, you actually, I'm going to continue for a couple more minutes. I'm so sorry. Carl, you gave me some of my first opportunities as a remixer, right? And the very first remix I did for you, I didn't really know what I was doing very much, and I was just kind of getting started. But I made something that I was pretty proud of for what, you know, for what I could do at the time. You know, I busted my ass and put out the best thing for you that I could at the time, and I really had Mike Mazzata, aka the Liar, in mind when I was creating it. And you know, he liked it, and so that really was, you know, sort of the gratifying factor for me there. And then we did, you know, the whole thing with the ambassador and the, you know, the spit pill thing and the whole 9 yards. And you had done the remix contest, and in that one I finished the ambassador remix, and I was like, yeah, but you know, you've got this other song that's a really good song that I would also like to remix and kind of experiment with a little bit and see what I come up with. And I'm really proud of that remix as well, the Cut Sick remix, right? Because I was like, I felt like I could completely recontextualize it and do some very I think I did some very interesting things in that remix. But of course, it gets over because you have that second part, which is like, these were not the winning tracks, but you can check it out for yourself. And some of those tracks were fucking fantastic, but you had so many fantastic things that some of us were like, hey, you know, this is the one that we're actually submitting, but here's another one that I did because it's fucking great. You know, and I think that's when you have a relationship like that with an artist, you have a different set of expectations than you do of somebody who you're like, oh yeah, I mean, maybe I've heard of you, maybe I haven't, like if you're getting in touch with me to do a remix, it's probably because you've heard something that I've done for somebody else who's like one of my friends, right? Because that's what most of them are. And so I'm gonna be kind of like, hey, you know what? I like it, and I feel like I can do something with it, and $300, and I don't need any cut of it. Then you might have something where you're like, hey, you know what? I have a good trusting relationship with this artist. Maybe we've done a couple of things together, somewhere along the line, and I'll say, hey, you know what? Why don't we do this as a split percentage release, because like you don't have any you don't have, you know, cash on hand to do something, but I really believe in the project and I want to do something with you, but I do kind of want to get compensated for it, you know what I mean? That might be an option. But yeah, the point of it being that I think a lot of our flexibility and what we'll you know, what we'll do it for, like how big of a bone do we want, how many Scooby snacks will we do that for, how many Klondike bars will it take to get us to do something, depends a lot on who's asking us to do it and what it is that they are asking us to do. Because as the was it Chris from the Sneaker Pimps, when he remixed Marilyn Manson, somebody asked him, what was it like remixing Marilyn Manson, and he said, like polishing a turd.
Okay. Thank you. So, or may I? Are you done? Because that was a good rant. Okay, great. This is the fucking thing, is that I have to be really careful what I say here, because like turd polishing is it's a saying in music, and I say to the guy that masters me, David, I always say, hey man, you're the best turd polisher in the business, because he polishes my turds. And this is what's really difficult about like so many remixes, is that when you get the song and you break it down, there's no song there. There's somebody with raspy vocals going, bah, 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 ja, bah, ja, bah, ja, ja. And there's no melodies, there's no chords. There's a bass line that's going bang, 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 bang for 3.5 minutes. There's drums that are going boots cha, boots cha, boots cha. And there is no, that's probably why I spend $80 on 80 hours on a track. And why I can break it down and I go, I'm not even going to listen to the drums. I'm not listening to the bass. If there's guitars, I might use it. Every now and then there's going to be a track that's fucking epic. But there's no melody in the vocals. There's no vocoder parts. There's no nothing. And the vocals are so distorted that I can't really add vocoder to it. And I have to go back to them and say, can I get raw vocals? Oh, no, we don't have any. Oh, okay. I have to add all of that stuff in there just because that's the sort of music I like. When you get an Angel Spit track and I send you stuff besides the vocals, there is melodies that I have torn my soul inside out trying to make these melodies work. There are chord structures that are Wagnerian. Fuck you. They are Wagnerian. There is so much shit going on that it's like you can take one bar of my bass lines and go, wow, and loop that shit, because it's been through, I've spent so much fucking time on that shit. And that's what's difficult, is then now I get your remix and I'm going to do all that again. But the vocals are going, cha 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 cha, and now I have to make something amazing out of that. And yes, there is a whole genre. I'm such a cunt for saying this. There's a whole genre for doing that, and that's great. But I'm not into that stuff, so I don't know what is good. I don't know what's good. So I have to bend this into what I think is good. I did a remix album thing. I think it was the Ignorance Cartel. And there ended up being 4 releases. Because I threw it out to a bunch of DJs, remixes, who then threw it out to another bunch of remixes. And I got like, I think I got 100 replies back. And I went, look, if this person has bothered doing this fucking remix, I'm going to scratch their back by putting it out. And I will let the audience decide whether they like it or not. And I hope bands got discovered through it. But anyway, I had a point. I totally forgot what it was. Yeah. So I forgot. Resi, floor's yours.
It's funny you say. I think every one of my remixes, at least the ones that actually made it out there, were like, take the vocal stem and every single part of what they offered on all the other stems, including like their original recordings, and recontextualize them, resample them, turn them into something that's useful in the final thing, and then reharmonize the whole thing, add a new top line, create a melody out of the grunty vocal. And I'm with you there. That's fun. But to bring it back to the economy of songwriting, I know how much you love my taxes and accounting question. How does it work with the distro? Your digital distributor has a slot for splits. I think probably most of them do now. Does your collaborator have to have an account usually with the same distributor to deal with that? It's as simple as that. They'll PayPal them or whatever their arrangement is. They do have to sign up with your, if you got a weirdo, like one of those invitation only ones.
Oh, no. If I did this, I do it through DistroKid.
Public,
because
not
DistroKid,
invitation.
yeah, most people are on DistroKid.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not doing CD Baby. Sorry, Adam. So I don't. And DistroKid will go, oh, hey, you're not a member of DistroKid, but you can get 50% off your first year if you join.
So they have to do the annual fee-based thing to retain their income. Oh, you're a mean one.
Well, the fucker is that I can't use AWOL because no one's good enough anymore.
I know.
Yeah, that wouldn't even
I know
let me
that
in
very
anymore.
well.
Yeah. And they do have a system where you can do do collaborators and they get paid, but there's a bunch of fuckery with that. DistroKids is easiest. But to me, if somebody said, I'm going to give you X% of a song, and I was starting out, I'd go, oh my God, yes, because I would see that as an opportunity to push. But I don't know if people fucking do that anymore. I don't know. I don't know, because everybody's so jaded at streaming and jaded at this and jaded at that.
Yeah,
and everybody's so fucking jaded.
I'd be afraid. Like, I'm so cheap, I've got Root Note as my distro because they have a no annual fee version, percentage based. I don't want to be locked in, and I'm off CD Baby for the time being for stuff because of their huge fee, no percentage based. And the annual fee ones, screw it. I don't want to be, beholden to paying a larger fee than my income in 10 years just to keep it up. So
this is what's really interesting is that I figured out that my sideline, the one that is free, but it takes a fee. It would be cheaper for me to be paying a fee. It would be far cheaper. Although what AWOL does, this is now the Orchard, which is fucking me, is pretty good, is pretty fucking good. So anyway, yeah, so I don't, it is interesting. You're absolutely right. After this, I've come about a bit that remixing is about discovering bands, and that's I guess that's what it's about. And I come to the table with, this is what I think. Somebody else is going to come to the table with what they think. Somebody else is going to say it's shits and giggles, and I guess that that's going to come down between the compatibility of what each other wants. That, yeah. But anyway, so. I don't know. The question didn't really get answered. It's interesting. Graham said, what is good? Art is very subjective. Yeah, it is. So is business. It's interesting how the objective is, the way that you are going to achieve what it is you want to achieve is different. And everybody is doing this for a different reason. And that's what's hard for me. is if somebody is going to do me a remix, I'm going to release it because I need to honor that person. And I've released remixes that I've gone, this is terrible. And then the next time it's like, oh, it's okay. Then the next time it's like, holy shit, this is a banger. Same artist, 3 albums. Won't mention names. Actually, it's happened a few times. No, you hit the mark on the first time, Adam. You did good, man. You did very fucking good. You're better than I am. But that's the whole thing. It's that, you know, it's our responsibility, or at least I feel it is my responsibility to, you know, you got to be patient with artists, and you've got to invest time into them because they invested it into me, and somebody invested it into me, and KMFDM fucking said, we'll believe in that guy. I don't know how that went for them. It worked for me. It's also really interesting, like looking back on, I was thinking about how different everything has changed since Surgically Atoned, because there was a golden age of remixing that was kind of early 2000s to kind of late 2000s, where you could charge $2,000, $4,000 for a remix. And one of the remixes on that was $1,000. Won't say who. Oh no, it wasn't that album. It was another one. But it's interesting how the culture of clubs and the culture of everything was such a way that you could do almost anything and it would get played somewhere. I feel that's changed a bit, but that's another rant for another time. It was interesting that, like, I remember the Grim mentioned the Gun remix I did for Aria, and also the Ice and Tiller remix, and the Haley and Flowers remix. Like, there was all of this fantastic shit that was going on, where it was this crazy free time. You could do anything you wanted, and it was going to be okay. I really want to find that again. Anyway, and that goes back to the first thing, that I need to punch out of the atmosphere of whatever the fuck I'm in right now. So yeah, Razzie, I see your hand.
This might wrap it up, but it's kind of funny. Like, if we do this as an economy of giving royalty points, then it's cutting the middlemen into our trade back and forth a little bit more. It's like when we sign up for each other's Patreons and stuff, we're just like trading the same dollar back and forth, except the middleman is shaving off their 15%, or the transaction fees are shaving off theirs. It's a little bit maddening. But we aren't talking about barter systems. We are talking about doing it through the more sanctioned and established economic structure, which it's a bummer, but that cuts in.
Okay, I just thought of something. And what I should start doing is, the bells, thanks, Grim. What I should start doing is saying, I'm going to trade modular parts. I'll give you a remix and you can have a filter. That would be trading gear, because that's the weakness for so many fucking musicians, is gear. I will trade you gear. That works. Yeah, no, you're not having my gear fucking library. There is actually a synth library in LA that you join up. It's specifically for female artists. So you join up and you pay, it's like $20 a month, and you can you can library card out gear. I'm talking Moog gear. And Korg, Roland, Moog, Orteria, a whole bunch of different brands donate gear to this thing, and they hire it out. And it's a really fun thing. Yeah, really fun thing. Yeah, so I don't know, maybe that's the best. I mean, like, I still think the sweater, you want to fucking crochet me a sweater with the big Space Invader on it? I'll do you a fucking remix. Or a beanie. Always need a good beanie. With a Space Invader on it. Yeah, or cravat. Or a scarf. But gear. Maybe that will be it. But it's like, and that's really funny that here's a filter word that you can buy on Reverb for like $80, but I don't know, knowing that one of my friends used it on one of their albums, it has so much more value. I don't know. Maybe that's the thing. There you go. Food for thought. And you'll be using that filter in 20 years, I'll tell you now. Especially if it's a doper, you'll definitely be using that doper. If anybody else has any final words, I'm going to wrap this thing up because I'm going to turn this fucking computer off and I'm turning it back on Monday morning. Tuesday morning. Although I am going to do some streams this weekend. So yeah, thank you as always for you guys getting me out of my funk. I'm such a fucking bastard, but hey, I'm a lovable bastard. So are you, and fuck you. We're gonna be here again next Saturday, and doing this crazy shit. And so please join us. Watch it on the Twitch. Although more people are watching on fucking YouTube right now. There you go. This is Angel Spit's Patreon, and good to see you, Rob. $3 a month, and you can help me do my shit. And yes, I only get 85% of that. Angel Spit's new album is on Bandcamp. It's Will Ruin Your Mind. Ice Planet 9000 kickstarts probably next week. It's 80 minutes of music, and I'm very, very proud of it. And I really sincerely hope that this music calms you and heals you and inspires you. That's what I want this to do. If my music is an offering to God, then you are my God in this album. There you go. Wow. That needs to be a song. Industrial Incisions playlist has got a whole bunch of music in it. Go listen to it. New bands, old bands. If you like them, follow them. And if you want the best of the best as far as fucking streaming shit goes, MTV TV. And we're streaming there right now. So go watch MTV TV, and I promise you, you are going today, if you watch it, you're going to find a new favorite band. If you've got an email, if you've got a video, send it to Adam and Diana, who are here now. They will play your music. They're coming up on 3 years, and we've got to keep MTV TV going because I'm always bitching about all the problems our scene has in promotion and blah, blah, blah. The answer is MTV TV because they play your shit for free. They don't take a cut. They're right there. And by the way, they've got a Patreon because keeping this shit going is not cheap. There, so go support them. Let's write to MTV TV now. Let's find some awesome new music. And if you're watching on Twitch or something else, we are rating. And we're just going to keep turn your mics on, let's fucking talk. You walk by. Diana, tell me when we rated. And unmute yourselves because we're going to do what we always do and sit out the back here and chat. Which is what we do. And I'm going to eat fucking pizza because fuck it. What was the magic word that made all the carbs and words go? Waka chaka wa. I forgot what the word was.
Waka
Yeah.
waka waka.
All right.
I don't know. It was part Aussie, part Fozzie Bear.
Yeah. It's the thing. So how's the raid going, Diana? We've raided. Yeah, happy New Year.
We're rated.
All right.